Wow, there's a lot of people here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CVSSP's 30th anniversary. Can Machines Think? And I hope you all have an excellent evening this evening and are inspired to collaborate with us. I'd like to welcome our Vice-Chancellor, Professor Max Luo, to open the event.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you all to this truly remarkable and landmark event, the 30th anniversary of the Center for Vision, Speech, and Signal Processing. CVSSP's impact on campus and across the globe cannot be understated. Speaking of the globe, I just have returned from the other side of it. I just returned from Korea, South Korea, where the Times Higher Education Summit on Innovation Impact was held in Daejeon, hosted by KAIST. The theme was about AI, how the universities would drive the AI revolution to change the world and also to benefit education and innovation within the universities. There's also exciting news. The new Times Higher Education ranking based on impact, using the UN Sustainable Development Goals as a matrix. The ranking put the University of Surrey in the top 100 and top 50 in the subcategory partnerships. So I wish the colleagues there in Daejeon in Korea could be here tonight to witness what CVSSP has achieved with many of its industrial partners represented tonight in the room. And clearly, not only this kind of collaboration has been productive, successful, but it also has achieved leading scholarly impact and also real applications and innovations in industry. So what is particularly extraordinary about the work of CVSSP is the range of its research and how it touches the lives of so many people, as you will see, as you have already seen from some of the demonstrations, and you will see from the talks later this evening. From facial recognition and its role in the urgent question of world security to the future of sound entertainment and to vital steps forward in life-saving and enhancing technology for healthcare. The phrase state of the art could have been invented for this center. It truly leads the world in AI and machine perception. And just when AI and machine learning are set to transform the way we live, machine perception is the key enabling technology for future autonomous systems. For a little history, the CVSSP is the largest university research center for AI and machine perception in the UK, and indeed one of the largest in Europe. It has recently been ranked number 3 in Europe and number 11 in the world in computer vision. It is very unique in bringing together the expertise in machine perception, both audio and visual signals, and with the ambitious goal of creating machines that can see and hear and think, to better understand our world and therefore enhance human experience and also enhancing productivity for our industries. Over the past 30 years, CVSSP has contributed numerously to many ground-breaking scientific advances in audio and visual perception and pioneered innovative technologies leading to successful commercialization. Some of the spin-offs from this center have gone on to lead industry in biometrics for facial recognition, voice security, and Academy Award-winning visual effects for films production. And as if this not enough, a major output of CVSSP, of course, is through the PhD level training, with some 250 PhD graduates from this center. And our alumni, many of them are here tonight, have gone on to become leaders in industry and academia. We're very proud of your achievements. So all of us at Surrey are extremely proud of the center's achievements, the scholarly leadership, and the contribution to the university's reputation. So I would like to say congratulations to all of you in the center, the alumni and supporters, and may our next 30 years be even more remarkable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Luo, for opening up this event. So I'd just like to take a few minutes to start off with to tell you where the centre is today. And then we have our keynote talks for this evening, which is what I'm really excited to see. So first of all, what does the centre do? Well, as has already been said, we're really a centre about AI and in particular machine perception. So the link between machines through sensory data to understanding the world around us. And if you think about that, that's a key technology. And you'll see the showcase outside that we have of various different applications of that technology, which range from healthcare right through to autonomous vehicles and entertainment production. Some of that you'll see this evening. As Max said, we're one of the largest centres in Europe, and certainly in computer vision, we've been ranked recently very highly. As a centre today, we're 20 academic staff, and the real engine behind what happens in the centre, of course, is the other 150 researchers that go alongside that to drive things forward. And that's PhDs and postdoctoral researchers across the breadth of things that we have. So one of the larger activities in this area, and of course funding from right across the range of certainly UK government funding and industry funding. So the core of what we do, and the core expertise that brings us together as a centre is in AI, machine perception, signal processing, those disciplines that really underpin what we do in terms of understanding sensory data and how we treat that. And then that is then applied in various different application areas. But I would stress that the kind of fundamentals of this are what brings us together as a centre and makes us a centre. And then we can dive into application areas. And of course, with the recent advances we've had, in fact, the same technologies can be applied across a quite wide range of areas. So you'll see some aspects of this evening. One of the things that also makes us a centre is collaboration. And here at Surrey, one of the features of Surrey research is certainly collaboration. So collaborating across the university with other expertise, whether it's in the communication sphere or in the sound recording. We have an excellent Institute of Sound Recording here in psychoacoustics, which really complements some of the work we do in terms of the understanding in those areas. And through to healthcare, another centre of excellence in the university, the Sleep Research Centre. And there's a huge amount of potential collaboration there and things going on, some of which you'll also see today. And those things are key. And then collaboration outside of the university with many of the companies represented in the room today. This is just a snapshot of some of the companies, certainly not exhaustive, but within each of those sectors, key players within those sectors that we're collaborating with and that are supporting the activity that we have here. And the key thing about us, as with any university, is we're looking at the longer term research challenges, the things that are too risky for companies to take on immediately. And that's where PhDs and postdoctoral research comes in. And then internationally, of course, we're not in isolation. We collaborate right across the world with teams and leading teams across the world. And these things are strengths of the centre to really link to some of the leading activities elsewhere to build up expertise and drive the whole field forward. And that's absolutely key to those things and something we're very proud to do. So as a centre, the key for us is about people. It's about the people we have in the centre, the expertise from the academics through to the PhD students. And that's what drives the ideas, and that's what drives being able to solve problems, essentially. So you'll hear some more about that this evening. You'll hear from some of our alumni. and where they've gone on to in terms of their careers, both in academia and industry, and see some of the aspects of the research also that we're doing. So with that, I'd like to hand over to our founder of the Centre, Professor Josef Kittler, who's going to take us through some of the past and some of the future of the Centre. Josef is a world-renowned figure in terms of, I guess, a pioneer in the field of pattern recognition and machine learning. Over the last 30 years, I'm sure Josef will say some about where that's come from, and very well recognized internationally in terms of driving that forward and still driving things forward today. So we're very pleased to still have Josef as a very active member of the Centre. And with that, I will hand over to you, Josef.
It's a huge audience. It's really heartwarming to see so many people. Thank you very much to all those who are coming out of interest in what CVSSP is doing, and also to all the alumni, who many of them I haven't seen for a long time, and it's a fantastic opportunity for me to reconnect and see them. Adrian asked me to provide some input to, I think these lights are a little bit annoying, can't see a thing, to provide some input to the discussion whether machines can think, and so that will be part of my talk, short part of my talk. But he also asked me to say a few words about the origins of CVSSP. And we are celebrating a birthday, so basically go back to the time of birth. And if you want to do that, then you should really look a little bit before that, and the prenatal period. So not sure, okay. So really, I can define as a birth, well, not of CVSSP, but a conception of the focus of CVSSP to the start of my PhD, because when I finished my undergraduate degree, I was interested in signal processing, and signal processing section of the department in Cambridge didn't have place, so I went to control engineering. And my supervisor, Peter Young, on my arrival, gave me 2 books which just appeared, and he was asked to review them. And he said, well, you read them and write a draft of my review. And so very much what we do now. But anyway, that brought me to the topic of AI, basically. Both books were to do with machine learning, and I found that topic exciting, and it was sort of halfway between signal processing, what I originally envisaged, also a special focus of signal processing, and it was also relevant to Peter Young's expertise, who was an expert on parameter estimation, so system parameter estimation, so it all fitted very well. So I decided to move into that area, and it was felt also fitting because my compatriot Karel Čapek actually coined the word robot, and so I thought, well, it would be nice to work in that area which relates to robotics and AI. Of course, when he invented robots, there were sort of more like androids, and the idea was, it was a play which was written basically against war, but the concept was that a mad scientist wanted to prove that God doesn't exist by creating a complete replica of a human being from biomaterials, so much more advanced than what we are doing now. And anyway, so After that, of course, there was a long period of gestation, and I arrived to study in 1986, and I joined a group of intelligent systems, which was headed by Bernie Cohen, and brought some of my research activity from Rutherford Lab, where I was previously, and also managed to attract John Illingworth the same year because there was an opening to join us in the research group, and we started bringing projects, and probably came to the attention of the head of department, Ken Stevens, who in 1988 asked me to set up a research group in which we called Vision, Speech and Signal Processing. And in 1988 also Maria Petru joined us. There were a few milestones which were facilitated by various grants. So we got a Wolfson grant for setting up a robot lab, and in 1996, when the center grew to substantial size, it was promoted to, well, it was group which grew to a substantial size. It was promoted to center. And the Nerada Milestone was in 2000 when we received more than 2 million grant to refurbish our facilities. And we originally, well, before moving here, moving to our BA building, we resided in AB building at the top, on the top floor, and had a fantastic lab there, which actually was more or less designed by Adrian because he was already at Surrey, and with John they were driving the media research. Wrong way, just a minute. Okay. I think yeah, okay. Oh yes, otherwise we'll run out even more of time than. So in the growth, or during the growth of the center, I think the key roles were played by two colleagues, John Illingworth and Maria Petru. I think we were really working very hard to bring a lot of research funding. You cannot grow anything without actually bringing money from outside. And but we got a lot of support from Michael Kelly, who was head of school at the time, and so it was very nice, very good to collaborate with him. Now there are a number of not milestones, but progression steps. I think you can see from this slide that as we brought more and more projects into the center, we started covering more and more diverse application areas. So although the core technology was always artificial intelligence, computer vision, image processing, we were really applying it very widely to different areas, from surface inspection, so texture inspection, through shape inspection, and image database retrieval, and you name it, and we had a go at it. Now, one could sort of ask a question, what was the secret of the success? I think when I started listing it, I realized that it was all motherhood, and probably anybody who wanted to build anything would have to more or less follow the same recipe. But I think we always worked or tried to bring in both applied and fundamental research projects, because the whole ethos of the group, as Adrian already explained, was that all the underlying technologies shared across all the applications, and so if you have a mix of different applied projects, there will be some interesting, well, it will provide a platform for testing actually algorithms which were developed for one area, for their applicability in another area. And basically it was the cycle of bringing challenging problems from industry, inventing algorithms, then trying to underpin them by theory, and then test them again in applications. And this cycle has been sort of repeated many times, well, for all the projects. What was, of course, very important was collaboration and international links. I cannot mention all people who interacted with us, but certainly notable was collaboration with Edwin Hancock at York, and two groups in the Czech Republic, one at the Czech Academy of Sciences, one at Technical University in Prague with Jiri Matas when he returned back to Prague, and also in Cambridge and Delft. And we had many projects or collaboration with industry, and some of the funding came directly from industry. During 1990s, we had a significant activity in fundamental computer vision. We were privileged to collaborate with top groups around the world, and some of the alumni here will probably recognize the Bibles of computer vision and digital signal processing from that area. So Azrael Rosenfeld book and Ballard and Brown book, and we had a project with, it was an EU project, but it had also NSF collaboration, and so it brought us together into a fantastic team, and we really addressed very challenging problems, which many of them haven't been solved even by now, but obviously there has been tremendous progress already that makes the technologies developed applicable. Just to indicate how successful we were in relating to industry and solving problems for industry, we received many accolades, and there is a long list, but perhaps the most weighty one was the EU IST Grand Prize, which John Illingworth and Adrian Hilton received for the development of a freehand scanner, and that sort of work was really leading into all this activity in 3D modeling. We contributed a lot of techniques which have been cited very widely, and many of them ended up in textbooks, but I think not everybody is, many of them were in low-level image processing, which hopefully has been mainly solved by now, and people are focusing on other things, but things like thresholding techniques. I think the paper that we published has been cited more than 2,000 times, so quite an impressive legacy, I think. And I was heading the center until 2012. These are all the faces that joined us, and some of them also left us. But during this period, since I handed over the directorship of the center to Adrian, the center actually grew in maybe by more than 50%. I think in 2012 maybe we were about 100. I know that at some point we stopped inviting people to annual Italian pasta party because we couldn't manage. I think that stopped when the center exceeded 70. And anyway, but although the center has expanded and grown tremendously since Adrian took over, what hasn't changed this was supposed to be out, but anyway. What hasn't changed is our sort of impact in academic spheres. and also in sort of application areas, but which can be judged from just accolades or awards which the center received over the 2-year period between 2017 and 18. I couldn't list everything from the start of CVSSP because we would be here until 9 o'clock, even much later than we are already, well, we are behind already. How can I characterize this CVSSP, the past and now? I think I would like to use the favorite quotation of Maria Petru. It's not her quotation, but it's a quotation from Aristotle, which says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." So this was the first part of my talk, and I would like to say just a few words about, as an input to the discussion later, whether machines can think. And you already saw in the video that I said yes, but I would like to qualify it. If you look in the Cambridge and Oxford and American Webster dictionaries, there are different definitions and actually multiple definitions of thinking, of to think. And some of the dictionaries don't really give you an option to pick something that would allow you to say, yes, machines can think. But in Cambridge Dictionary, it says that, I've written it here, be of the opinion, be under the impression, to form connected ideas, to reason, to solve a problem. So if you think about a machine or thinking process as taking some information, some data, and analyzing it and producing some output, then machines can definitely do that. And in that respect, I would say that machines can think, but they do it in a mechanistic way. But they cannot do many things. They cannot switch between modes of reasoning. And just to give you a very quick example, we compared the performance of our face recognition system with a human super recognizer, people who are expert in remembering and recognizing faces. And we were performing a test which was defined by a psychologist, and on the test, the average, the performance of an average mortal is about 70% correct. Super recognizers do 85%, and our face recognition system did 100% correct. And even in situations which are quite challenging, so it's not challenged by beard, by occlusion, and to a certain degree by distortion. So you can see that in all these cases, machine did well. And incidentally, this is super recognizer, not all that well. But there are cases when the machine cannot do well, and the super recognizer did actually very well. So twins, if you present a pair of images of twins, then super recognizer will say, well, they could be twins, and he starts thinking in a completely different way and starts looking for minute differences and ignores the similarity, the global similarity completely. Also, if the quality of the imagery is very poor, or if you have a complete disguise like here in the right-hand corner, or if you are trying to match across a wide range of ages, then the machine cannot do well. So you can see that face recognition system can do much better than human, provided it's well-defined conditions, etc. But as soon as there is something challenging, then humans are better. Machines cannot also use context very flexibly. So if you look at this image of the painting from Bruegel, by Bruegel, you can see that it's extremely busy. And it's not only that there are many people and many objects, but you can see from the images that there is a lot of activity which you immediately recognize as some trade activity, and there is a oops, again. Okay. Here you can see that the guy is throwing cards out, so there was probably something strange going on inside when they were playing cards and some disagreement. And so machines, although we are developing more and more sophisticated computer vision systems, they are unable to deal with complexities of imagery and videos as well as humans. So again, I think there is a proviso here. There are other areas where I would say that machines are deficient. They cannot cope well with anomalies. They cannot deal robustly with multi-criteria objectives. They cannot take into account beliefs. So if you are, for instance, religious, then that will affect your decisions. And if you have strong political beliefs, can also affect your decision making. And machines are not able to do anything like that. They cannot use seamlessly complementary sensor modalities, although that is changing, especially in the domain of autonomous driving. Easily integrate language and perceptual reasoning. We are doing some initial work in that area, but although it's very promising, at the same time it reveals all the deficiencies that we still have to overcome. And they cannot justify conclusions made and feel emotions and empathy. So many things still to do, and they can also be easily fooled. So for instance, if you add very small perturbation to the image on the left, you cannot see those perturbations in the image on the right. So for you, it's still the same person, but for machine, it would be it would say that it's a non-match, and it would not recognize that individual. And apart from technical capabilities, back to Čapek's Rozum Universal Robots, the play I mentioned earlier, already 100 years ago, when the robots rebelled and tried to get rid of humans, the humans started asking questions: who is actually to blame? Is it the scientists who originally worked on, on the idea, or is it engineers who try to bring it into something realistic? Is it manufacturers who are producing products, or businessmen who are actually deciding what manufacturers should be producing, or investors who are actually giving money to businessmen to decide what should be done, or politicians? So I think there is still there are still many ethical issues that will have to be considered, and so that's another sort of angle or aspect of AI. So that brings me to the conclusion. Thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Josef, for an insightful talk. I'm going to invite Jiri to come up. I think we're going to switch computers, possibly, at this point. I think that's the safest way to do this. So Jiri was, when I first arrived in the centre, back in 1992, Jiri was a PhD student in the centre at that stage, who earned a reputation, I guess, for being quite formidable whenever there was an internal seminar. Jiri was the one who would ask the questions and really drill into your understanding of the subject. And I think that's probably a trait that Jiri's kept to this day. But he's gone on to become a leading academic in the field, particularly well known for his work in tracking, object recognition, and I think Jiri's going to talk about some of that this evening.
Okay, thank you. So I'm really glad to be here and see so many faces I haven't seen for such a long time. I was told, following on Adrian's introduction, that some students wanted to have their viva when I was away at the conference. So probably there is some basic truth in this. But okay, so you see that I've been at Surrey for a very, very long time. I'm almost one of the old-timers. Didn't make it to Josef's slide anyway. Although, because I was never an academic, a faculty member, okay, so. And I noticed that when I was writing this slide that I've been working with Surrey people for 26 years, and the chain has been broken because with Richard we have not followed our work from 2016, so I have to do something and we have to somehow recover it. So 26 years with Surrey, very fond of those years and good training that set me on the right path. So the answer, which I was asked, can machine things, and I duck it, I don't know, and I think we don't even know what things means. And I think people who reply to that question, and Joseph, they think about something very high level. Like when someone asks me this question is, do dogs think? I think they do. Do flies think? Well, who knows? Does amoeba think? There is some, so I think we should understand the word think first and then say whether machines can do that. But I in the CVSSP, I was always in the vision part, and our job was to make machines see, and I think they can see. They can see much better than they used to. They can see in certain cases much better than humans. So at the recent conference I was at a panel and I was even asked in computer vision what are the solved problems, what are the trends? Like computer vision and solved problems, this means times are changing. A very important, like well-known researcher Ramachalapa, like in 97, he said in vision we don't solve problems, we get bored of them. Like, and people talked about can opening. We open a can, a new problem, we look into it, taste a little bit, and then give up. So a good example, like where we stood in 97, and there are some people who did PhD at that time, Sven Dickinson wrote in a 97 paper in an important journal. Well, he had a theory of recognition. This was a general theory of recognition. Everything could be recognized with something called geons. And he said, well, to find an object which would fit our theory, we had to build it. So this is not a generalization to one image. This image had to be created artificially. But yet, in 2003, we saw already some progress. In 2001, Viola Jones came with the detector, which worked real time. In 2003, this is some work that I started at Surrey. We could detect license plates and do OCR, something very practical. And this was based on a paper which I remember, actually it was published under my Prague affiliation, but I know that I wrote the code here. And this led to some spin-off companies with Joseph and so on, quite successful things. So in 2003, we could do something. Okay, not very impressive in these days. If we look what we can do now, this is from our paper last year. When it comes to, you can think about license plate detection and recognition as a very, very simple example of this type of problem, where we have multiple fonts, all sorts of orientations of text, and we are solving problems whether this thing is the same as that thing, and that thing is the same as this thing, and the machine is getting better than the very well-trained human. So in the last 20 years, computer vision has become eminently practical. I want to show one demo of where I worked for a long time. I wonder whether that would work. Hopefully, yes. And we are doing real-time demo here. And if I go to the, let's say, homepage, lots of people have done similarity search. Similarity search. Okay, so we gave up on the demo. What can I do? I see it here. Maybe I could do something. Okay, I'll try. I will not give up immediately. Let's say I will duplicate. Oh, okay. This is something to do with PowerPoint. So imagine you have these images, these nice images, and you would like, for instance, to search something on Notre Dame. And if you say, well, okay, this is the interesting part, and I'll search it, you will realize that in a large database of images, there will be very many similar things. Lots of people worked on that. There are 10 million images in this data set. But we came up with an idea of saying something like that. Well, if you want to know about this, do you really want to see the most similar things in the database? No, you already see that. Let's zoom in. Okay, so now what we are looking in a 10 million image database are those images which show this area in the largest possible resolution. And we can repeat this and ask for something like that. I'm not sure there is a bigger detail of that. And you end up with very high resolution images, okay, of this statue, or maybe on the portal. And this has practical implications. if you want to have a very beautiful, full reconstruction of Notre Dame, you don't want to take hundreds of photographs from the same scale. You want to have these super detailed photographs of which people take only of some parts, of the interesting structures. And then you have low resolution on the plain wall and high resolution on the details which people found interesting. If we go back, we can ask the other question. So now forget about the root here, and someone says, okay, zoom out. Someone gave me this beautiful picture. Where the hell is this? So now we don't want to see very similar images as that. We would like to see images where this area is the smallest possible. So we see, aha, it's something maybe here. Okay, now this is slow. Let's zoom out on that. Maybe it's the wrong image, actually. No, we'll see. We'll see. So, and now we know, aha, this is on Notre Dame, and we can go further. And the original part, which we started from, is this tiny pixel box here. Okay, so now we can go back to the presentation. So you can see that you can play with this, and you can look for very minute details. You can search for the context, and you can use these searches to build very precise 3D models. So now let's go back to the presentation. Let's see what happens. Good, exactly what should have happened. Okay, this was explained now. This was just a backup. So you can answer these questions. So this is a question for you. Which of these four details are depicted here in very low resolution? So who thinks it's the one here? No one. This one? Couple. This one? More. And this one? Okay, so you are very knowledgeable. You are good. And the point is that if we go for, like, this is the detail from there, and just at this resolution spread out. So the same resolution. Now, it's very difficult to check that these things are the same thing, but as we showed in the demo, you can say, well, we start from there, find that, and now it's obvious what it is. So actually the result is a search is not a pairwise finding for pairwise relationships, it's finding roots, sequences of images which will lead you from something looking like that to something looking like this. And this is an interesting thing. I will skip this one. You want to search things which are the same structure but very different illumination to build models, and you get very beautiful models from using day and night images, because at daytime certain things are highly visible, and at nighttime some other things are highly visible. So you have, and a classical similarity search will not give you will not connect images which are taken under very different illumination. I will show one more thing from our research. Something not so out of the box. So people have done tracking a lot, but we noticed that nobody is tracking very fast-moving objects. If you look at all databases, datasets that people work with, the objects are slowly moving, maybe a couple of centimeters per frame. Now, if you have an insect or hail or a tennis serve or table tennis or an arrow or a volleyball, in one frame the ball moves over a distance which is much larger than its size. So if you try to match this line to a ball as acquired when it's static, you will have no chance to match. And if you do the analysis, okay, I have to probably click here. Yeah. So you could take the sequence and interpolate if you want to show the ball moving slowly. You see the effect that you saw the double ball. If you recover as a continuous trajectory the ball, you can take any speed, any video, you can remove the ball, you can do artificial tricks with that, because you have recovered from the blurred trajectory every single moment, like you have continuous time. People start to oversample you. Now in your pocket you have a 700 frames per second videos, but maybe it's not good to sample, maybe it's good to recover this streak which is caused by the fast-moving object. There's another example here. Okay, now we have to go further. Is this what I want? Let's have a look. not sure what is happening, so let's try. Okay, this example didn't work. No, okay, it does. So this is an example of a volleyball, fast moving, and now let's see what we can do with this type of sequence, but it's not moving. Is it? So if we deconvolved the result, we saw this nice sharp ball, we estimate the rotation, we can actually show this video in slow motion without having slow motion. So what has happened, the streak, which is the mix of the background and the foreground, given by the rotation and the movement of the ball, can be, you can solve the inverse problem, recover the exact trajectory, recover the rotation, and produce a video as if it was in slow motion. We can do quite interesting things with this type of analysis. Now, so coming back to this question about solved problems in computer vision and trends and challenges, I was also asked to look forward in time. So one of the problems is, okay, I think in computer vision, and as in many engineering disciplines, nothing is solved always. You can always make it faster, more robust, more reliable. But maybe the hard question for people who are doing a PhD, is there a topic where CVP and ICC paper is impossible and no theoretical contributions are expected? And I think probably very few. So Josef showed the book or his result on Huff transform. This is a paper from, I think, 87. Huff patent is from 62. And a very closely related work on Ransack will be published, which we co-authored at this year's CVPR, which is the major conference. We had a paper at ICCV. So there are still like very few close topics. Of course, things are fashionable, some things have smaller impact, but certain things have long impact. Not a star, supernova types, but there are and many things which we have done in Surrey are still alive and doing well. Problems get reformulated, assumptions are dropped, so people have done tracking for 30 years, but nobody was attending to objects moving very fast. Everybody was attending to move things maybe which were not that blurred, because blur is the enemy. And actually I showed that blur can be our friend. The blur is our friend sometimes. Okay, so the trends, you've seen it. The CNNs push the state of the art significantly in many core areas. And for the businesses, I think this is an opportunity because we can solve many problems which we couldn't before, but it's also leveling the playground. So everything is reachable, but by everyone. So 3 guys who understand how deep nets work could maybe disrupt your business by making your best product available freely, open source. Certain things, certain new problems, like with vision, is so general that every time we sort of progress fast on some well-known problem, new problems arrive, or arise. Like, who would have thought that monodepth is possible? When people were doing their PhDs in the 90s, we believed that if we don't have depth, we will be in trouble. So lots of people worked on stereo depth estimation. Now we have depth cameras, and then people realize that maybe we can have depth from a single image if we show enough examples of images where we have depth and the image. And it turns out to work. Image captioning problems. Give me an image, I will tell you a sentence. 10 years ago, completely unimaginable. And as Adrian has shown in his presentation, I think that as the potential of computer vision methods increases, interdisciplinarity comes in, and there's a lot of collaborative work. Like, if you ask where is statistics used, it's everywhere. And I think computer vision, due to its generality, is used in biology, medicine, culture, heritage, robotics. Adrian showed the examples as well. Okay, and now incredible superhuman things emerge. So this is an example of super resolution from 8 times 8 input. Like, I guess if you ask a person, how does this person look like? You have no chance. Now, because this is an example where these are images, you can simulate this subsampling. It's ideal for training deep nets. You can get incredible results. So I'm also started to spin out companies, and one of them is doing this type of work for license plates, and actually it did help police to find 3 or 4 cases. The license plates are a very nice case because this is structured. You have something like that, but still the interpretation is only one possible. Actually, this is for people. If you are doing to identification, you don't need to do that. You just need to identify. Sorry? Oh, yeah, okay. No, this is like last 2 slides. I somehow thought I had the same amount of time as Joseph, but I didn't. So, you see, incredible things are happening, which are sort of right. This is a little bit off, but not that far. You have these mapping images where in many cases you get nice data. So, for instance, if you have a color one, get the gray one, this is easy to get, and learn to do the reverse. And beautiful things are happening. People can, from this input, infer that output. So things are exciting. Computer vision is making art, it's influencing art as well as some other sciences and engineering. And we are coming to the last slide, which says, okay, there are challenges. I think very few deep nets would see the Dalmatian here. Very few nets would see these 3 layers from the Escher drawing, where you see the fish, the surface, and the world. This is the same, but in the real world. There are some plants behind the window of a restaurant, and the church is a reflection, or some structures like lines and so on. So we are progressing fast. Certain areas will be now in the realm of companies, will not be done by academics, because companies have more data, they know how to do it, they have larger teams. But for me, the future looks bright. I'm not sure we'll have another 30 years, because we are in the golden age, where companies are still interested in academia. They have not overrun us, but maybe it will happen. The methods are improving rapidly. It means we'll have a lot of applications, a lot of potential. And at the moment, computer vision is booming. Let's hope it's not a bubble and we'll be in this large size, be able to assemble, say, in 15 years. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Go back. I will reconnect you.
So if we can switch back to the other projector.
I'm doing it.
It's a manual switch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Jiri. So it's my great pleasure to welcome John Starck to the stage. John was a PhD student with myself back in 2000, I guess, 2003, working on visual reconstruction, but has got a long way since. And it kind of links with the last talk because there's an element of visual effects there, I guess, which you'll see today.
Thank you very much, Adrian. Well, hello, everybody. And thank you, Adrian, for inviting me to come along and speak. It's really nice to see so many friendly faces. It reminded me of when I started at CVSSP in 2000, when I came as a fresh-faced PhD. I went to the video production studio, which was a cupboard. I think I remember with a black drape, but pretty much within 2 or 3 years, CVSSP had, I think it was all but one of the highest quality HD digital cameras in the UK. So it was astronomical growth, all down to Adrian's phenomenal success in funding. So the topic, can machines think? My contribution here is a little bit tangential. I want to show you what machines can do today to help us create. So more on the topic of can machines create, coming from the background on visual media production. So I want to show you what I'm doing with others in a company called Synthesia, and take you through a quick journey of what brought me to that point, starting from my PhD at CVSSP. So, as Adrian mentioned, I was PhD 2000 to 2003. After that, I went to work in the games industry, but I came back pretty quick, because it was so fun here, to work on a future generation of digital character creation. And that was up until 2008. So I now work as CTO at a company called Synthesia. Synthesia is a startup in London. And this slide is here for 2 purposes. It's showing you that it's already out of date. We've half as much again as of yesterday, I think, or the beginning of this week. But it's there to show you that we are a computer vision company built on AI. So to think back to 2000, the possibility that an entire company would be based on computer vision was unthinkable. As Jiri was saying, computer vision has come of age. I think possibly it came of age 4 or 5 years ago, and computer vision is part of our everyday life today. So we're a computer vision company. There are alumni from CVSSP, there's myself, but also the very excellent Karel Labida. I think he's here today. So Karel was a PhD student with Professor Bowden, and he'd hate me to say, but he won the British Machine Vision Sullivan Thesis Award a couple of years back. So he's a very central part of the team at Synthesia. So what are we doing? Well, we're trying to solve the complexity in video production. So video is by far the most effective way to engage with an audience, but it's a very hard medium to work with. If you want to produce some text, it's very easy. You just type it out. If you want to produce a digital image, okay, it might take a little bit longer, but you load up Photoshop and you can edit and you can create something that's really quite impactful, really quite easily. But video as a medium is hard to work with. You have to have producers, you need a production studio, you need cameras, you need audio, you need post-production. There's a significant amount of overhead to produce high-quality content. And this is a problem that we can use machine learning and AI to help solve. So that's what we're doing as a company. We're aiming to allow unlimited video production at high quality. We want to scale video as an asset. And if you can do that, there's lots of problems that we can help with. So you can start to personalize video. You can take it from a limited or broad view that has to satisfy everyone to be specialized to individuals. Your particular requirements, talking direct to you. You can localize content. You can translate it to different languages in a way that's acceptable. You can take video in English. You can translate it to many, many languages as if it was spoken natively in that language. You can also refresh the content. If you have a way of easily rewriting video, you can change the script over time. Your video production, that's very difficult to produce, has a shelf life of 3 views, can go to many, many, many views if you have the ability to be able to rewrite video as easily as you can edit a photo in Photoshop. So that's the principle of what we're trying to do using AI techniques, deep nets, to assist humans in creating video content. But why is it hard? It's hard because the most engaging thing about video is people, and the most engaging thing about people in video is when they communicate directly with you, and we as humans are hardwired to what it means to see a human being. So to achieve all these things, which would be great commercially, we'd love that, would be to create completely realistic digital humans. And that's a theme that's central in CVSSP. It was what my PhD started with here, and I've helped contribute with many, many others as PhD and postdoctoral student here. And it's hard. So creating a completely real digital human, this is an example from a few years ago. I'm a big Star Wars fan, and this is the recreation of Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One. And to me, this is a phenomenal achievement because, in my heart, I'm an engineer, and this is engineering to the nth degree. To produce the digital character there requires modeling and creating the physical geometry of reality down to sub-pore level detail. You model the geometry, you model the dynamics, you model the lighting in the scene, you model the interaction of lighting with the geometry in the scene, so that you can model how you produce pixels to make it look like a person. So phenomenal amount of effort, phenomenal achievement. Took 18 months of many, many very, very skilled people to produce 5 minutes of footage that goes on the final screen that you see in the movie. So huge achievement and huge effort. So what I'd like to show you now is a digital human that's being created for the purpose of localization. So this was a project that we had in collaboration with the BBC. It came out on the 10 o'clock news just before Christmas, I think late November time. And what you're looking at here is a digital human that's being created photorealistically using AI techniques in order to be able to enable media creators like the BBC to translate their content to any language. So this is a snapshot of what that looks like.
I've worked for the BBC since 1989. I'm second generation British. My parents originally came to the UK in 1959.
He trabajado en la BBC desde 1989. Soy británico de segunda generación. He trabajado en la BBC desde 1989. Soy británico de segunda generación. Mis padres llegaron al Reino Unido en 1959. Para mi vergüenza, no sé hablar ningún otro idioma.
So that result is a digital human. It's been completely synthesized, and the process to produce, let's say, 30 seconds of footage was completely automatic. It takes 48 hours to produce the result. And that step change in quality of result has been enabled by techniques such as generative adversarial networks that enable us to achieve things like this that you simply couldn't model as a human. So that's the result of a digital human, allows us to localize, produce dubbed content in a way that's acceptable to a native speaker, I hope, unless there's some Spanish speakers who hate this. So the next example is about rewriting a script. So taking a video production that's been shot once and giving it a much extended shelf life by rewriting it many, many times and reusing that content.
This is the original video we recorded on set. Once the video is shot, we can use Synthesia AI technology to easily edit the video and create a new one. So, this is a personalized video showcasing how Synthesia AI Actor works in practice. Looking forward to reading your newsletter soon, and I hope you enjoyed this small glimpse into the future of media synthesis.
So this is a snapshot of how you can simplify what is a very, very complicated process of updating a video over time. The simple process is the actor is now in control of her performance here, and she can create a new script and use that to update the original video. So this is something that will simplify media production significantly in the future and will significantly extend the shelf life of content that's being produced. So hopefully this will be kind of a sea change in how we see media produced in the future. So that's where we are as a computer vision company, leveraging AI to help the creation process of creating video. I wanted to give you a snapshot of how I personally got there, starting from CVSSP and the PhD and postdoctoral position I had with Adrian and Adrian's group. And it started, this is a little bit later on, started initially with multi-camera reconstruction of geometry of humans to create digital characters. And then it went on to this notion of data-driven synthesis. So modeling the geometry of people automatically is hard, but if you can resample from video, you can then create something that looks like video. Simple idea, but it's that idea that's kind of really at the heart of generative neural networks. With generative neural networks, you train them to see a distribution of what images look like. They store the inherent important information that they've seen that allows them to generate it. So it's the next stage on from this work. And of course, this work we now see has been commercialized by Microsoft. The production studio that was being built at CVSSP 10, 15 years ago, there are now industrial installations of similar concepts in the UK and in America, I think. So I started with modeling people, multi-view geometry, understanding content and images. From CVSSP, I went to work in the film industry. And in the film industry, I was working with, again, a team of excellent computer vision researchers on bringing computer vision tools to artists to help them create content. So this is a quick example of that. So this video shows you what I keep now calling classic computer vision, where we're trying to accelerate the process of modeling the world. And here, in order to help assist artists in the creation process of kind of manipulating it for visual effects and films. So in this footage, we've got a film clip. The poor artist in film post-production has been given the task of turning the beautiful daylight into a snowy scene because production can only happen in the summer, but actually it's supposed to be the winter. So through this process, using structure from motion, you build up a geometric model that an artist can work with, where they have the canvas for their creation, and they reproject from that canvas, the 3D world, back to the video for their creative process of producing the snow scene. So that is something that's from 2000, this sort of stuff is now on your phone. You can do AR with snow or dancing Pokemon if you want. But this is now an everyday part of our lives. So those are tools that kind of came out of the understanding of geometry and motion and images that I kind of gained at CVSSP. And that deals with the static world. So the next one is a quick example of using, again, classic computer vision techniques, in this case, motion estimation, to assist artists' creative workflows, but now with dynamic scenes.
Violence marks forever.
Violence against children marks them forever. It's wrong. End it.
So that's obviously quite a powerful video, but here computer vision is being used to assist the artist process, and the artist has been tasked with generating these animated images, but the complexity is this is a dynamic surface that they're working with, not a rigid structure that we could have solved with the previous problems I showed you. So this was work at a company called Foundry, and that moves on to, from there I came to a company that started to help start up a company called Synthesia to do synthesis of people. But those techniques were all about providing artists the canvas to paint on. So what's enabled creating truly photorealistic people is training systems to generate the content themselves. So that's come from techniques, generative networks that have really kind of exploded over the last few years. And this is just a snapshot of some of the research in that area. So these are all images researched by NVIDIA here. These are all synthesized faces. So this is a network that's been trained on a particular data set, a celebrity data set. That's why they're all fantastically beautiful people, probably. But these are all hallucinated faces. The network has learnt the distribution of famous people's faces, and you can stimulate that latent space and generate new images that previously didn't exist. And these are at a quality that you can't distinguish from normal camera images. And so, kind of on the slight tangent to the theme of can machines think, what does this do for us? Well, it changes the creation process from one of painting every single pixel to one of making it a much more creative process, the process that artists want to go through. They want to be creative all of the time. They don't want to be painting every single pixel all of the time. And this enables us to move up that abstraction layer. So going from, in this example, painting hair different colors, to selecting styles. And what will that do? So if media moves this way, it will change the way that we create content. It will be much easier to generate very high quality content. You'll be able to create content, make images in the style of a famous painting artist. It essentially lowers the barrier to entry to produce higher quality content, and it raises the amount of content that people can produce. And for actors, digital performances, AI actors, as we're calling them, it introduces this new way of working. So an actor can have ownership of their digital persona, their digital performance, and they can perform in completely new ways. They can create content in completely new ways. So performance is democratized as well. But I think as Joseph was saying and alluding to earlier, it raises ethical issues too. For us at Synthesia, we are producing content with consent. We're not reanimating political actors. But of course, there's potential for malicious use. I'm sure you've seen lots of videos of Obama saying bad things about Trump, or Trump saying bad things anyway. So there's the whole ethical aspect of how this technology is used. And of course, it is going to have a huge impact. We think it's going to be able to democratize creating high-quality content. And this area has got different names, creative AI, but I think one of the terms that's sticking is synthetic media, so synthesized media. So thank you very much for listening.
John, thank you for a fantastic insight into one of the applications of AI, which I think is going to have huge impact on everything we look at in terms of media. And you think of the reach of that potentially is huge in terms of communication, in terms of all the visual media that we look at, which is basically what the internet's made up of, if you like. So for our final keynote, we have one of our current research leads within the centre, Dr. Shirin Enshaeifar, who's going to talk about another aspect of the use of AI, and in particular machine learning, in the healthcare domain.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Good evening, everyone. Well, we've heard a lot about the interesting and impressive applications of AI this evening. Now the question is, can machines solve a healthcare problem?
That's my fault. Just go back one slide.
Okay. Yeah, great. So the question is, can machines solve a healthcare problem? Well, the answer is both yes and no. AI and machines could fundamentally change the nature of healthcare delivery, and the transformation already started and is inevitable. However, we should remember that AI solutions could improve the clinical decision making and also support our clinicians, but it cannot replace them. Machines are really good at doing repetitive tasks. They can get lots of data, crunch them, and extract patterns from very large, complex data sets much faster than humans can do. Machines are also really good at learning. As long as we give them good quality data, they can learn from examples and experience. And that would mean that by every sample and every case that we give them, they can become better and better. Also, machines are really good at analyzing high-dimensional and multifaceted data for analyzing healthcare specifically, and that's something that is intuitively difficult for humans. But given all these advantages, up to what extent can machine help us for a healthcare issue? Well, generally, health issues are complex because they're affected from many different aspects: physiological, biological, psychological, or even social factors. And if we have all these factors implemented into a problem, then we would need our best existing solutions to work together to overcome that problem. And that's why it's best if humans and machine can work together. Some of the very good examples are use of AI in medical imaging or robotic surgeries. And of course, it's kind of difficult to predict the future, but AI could generally improve healthcare in several aspects. The first one is when we can use AI for analyzing large amounts of unstructured data, health data, such as photos, videos, electronic health records that are available to us, and even analyzing the clinical and clinicians' notes that we have in our systems. If we have good amounts of historical data from our patients, then AI solutions could provide solutions to our clinicians to give us more accurate and more personalized care. For example, imagine that instead of getting a diagnosis from a doctor who's seen probably hundreds of cases, we could give the same case to a machine that has seen hundreds of thousands of similar cases, and then that machine could give us insights and some suggestions to the same doctor, and then that doctor could unbundle those information according to the personal condition to prescribe the best treatment. And that's how we can integrate massive analysis with the expert knowledge. The other interesting aspect of AI for healthcare is the fact that it can make access to healthcare more worldwide and more accessible. The solution for us is that we get large amounts of good quality data, and we create baseline and benchmark data sets, and then we get expert knowledge from some doctors in some parts of the world, and we develop solutions to become available in other parts of the world. Basically, we are getting the knowledge of our experts and disseminate it across boundaries. However, it's very tricky because such systems should be really reliable. If a doctor makes a wrong diagnosis or notes something wrong, it could affect only a few patients around that doctor. But if we carry on with an AI solution, it could affect thousands of people. The other aspect is that we are all facing in these modern medicine age is the continuity and real-time access to data. If we think of traditional healthcare services, generally only people that are at intensive care units or that are under surgery are having continuous monitoring. But when they will be sent home, they would only have intermittent observations. So using these connected worlds and IoT devices and all of these wearables, now we have the ability to collect data continuously, and that allows us to remotely monitor our patients. Also, by integrating different sources of information about the environment, about physiological parameters and vital signals, and about the day-to-day activities, we could provide more predictive solutions, and that would help us to shift towards a more preventative care. Also, by developing interactive applications such as coaching apps, we can improve patient engagement, and we can also allow our citizens to become more responsible into day-to-day health and lifestyle management. One of the healthcare challenges that we've been working on at CVSSP is how to use technology and AI together to help for the people who suffer from chronic conditions to stay within their own home for a longer time while they're safe and while we are improving their quality of life. In particular, we worked with people with dementia, where dementia is a condition that affects the cognitive ability. And most of our participants were people above 70 years old. We tried to work with low-cost sensory devices and off-the-shelf devices. We put those devices in people's home, and we tried to collect continuous physiological data, vital signals, and environmental data. And then we developed AI solutions or machine learning algorithms to detect early signs of agitation, infection, and also to analyze their routine to pick up anomalies. One of the very specific examples is that we developed an algorithm to detect urinary tract infection or UTI at early stages. And the reason for that algorithm is that UTI is one of the top 5 causes of hospitalization of people with dementia. And generally, it gets diagnosed at very late stages when symptoms become severe and when they are admitted to hospitals. So using these low-cost sensory devices, which are mostly passive from people's home, we try to combine the physiological and activity and environmental data to detect the risk of UTI at very early stages, so doctors could prescribe antibiotics, and that will reduce the hospitalization of them. Of course, UTI is one of the many use cases of how AI could improve healthcare delivery. But our goal, specifically at CVSSP, is to develop more and more better quality care, to develop smarter solutions that are also available to people and to everybody. How much we become successful in that? It depends on the quality of the data and on how reliable our AI solutions will be. Thank you so much.
Shirin, thank you very much. That's an insight into one of the areas of the centre that you'll be able to see demos on after the proceedings. We're now going to move into a panel session with the invited speakers, which my colleague Jim Al-Khalili has kindly offered to chair. Jim is a professor of physics here at the university, but is also known to all of you as a public communicator of science through radio and television.
Thank you, Adrian. Well, firstly, Joseph, Adrian, everyone involved in CVSSP, congratulations on 30 years. I mean, I think anyone, both from within the university and visitors from outside, have been absolutely hugely impressed and blown away by the work and the demos outside and the quality of the research. I should say, if this was organised by physicists, we wouldn't have an hour session overrunning by more than 50%, but that's fine. Since I hope all of you are joining us anyway for drinks and networking and looking around a bit later, we go on till 8 o'clock, is that all right? Is that, if people really feel they need to go, then by all means. But if I could invite the panelists the speakers to join me, I was going to ask each of you a question, but I thought we'll... Joseph, yes, yeah, please. No, your work hasn't finished for the evening. I was going to ask each of the panelists a question myself before I opened up to the audience, but I think we'll dispense with that. But can I, just out of interest, ask you, the audience, so the question, can machines think? Given that you may not have the single definition on what thinking means, nevertheless, show of hands, how many of you think machines can now think? Very few. Okay. And then just to satisfy my interest, what's also great is no one's mentioned the Terminator. In the future, if we say thinking, I think Jiri mentioned that, we'll say a dog can think. If we define thinking as consciousness, sentience, self-awareness, how many believe that will happen at some point? Artificial general intelligence will happen at some point in the future. Excellent, glad to see that. all strong AI experts. Okay. I think we have roving mics. So please raise your hands if you would like to ask any of the speakers any questions. Okay, so we have one on the fourth row in the middle, and any to get ready over there? Yes, on the end there.
Thanks very much. Professor Jeff Bamber from the Institute of Cancer Research. We've heard some wonderful examples of solutions to problems, answers to questions. It may not be a sufficient definition of thinking, but one of the key components that I feel is something that Adrian mentioned as a compliment to Jiri, which is that he is well known for asking questions. And one of the key components that I believe is required for thinking is not only to solve problems, but to define problems, to ask the questions rather than answer the questions. So my question to the panel is, do you think machines will ever one day be able to pose problems or ask the questions?
Who would like to? I mean, you don't have to all answer every question, so if one of you feels they have something to contribute, please do.
Well, I can start from the creative media creation side of the story. It depends what the question is. If the question is a query to assist you, it happens all the time. So I ask a machine a question, it's a fact system, it needs to drill down to understand what my question is, so we'll ask back a query to help with that interaction as a digital assistant. Is that what you mean by ask a question?
No, that is still a sub-component of solving the problem that you defined.
Okay, so I think we are not talking about thinking. We are talking about some sort of like human intelligence and a sense of human intelligence and like what will be the last challenge for the machines. So if we say the dog is thinking and cat is thinking, I'm not sure the cat is posing questions, or the questions it's posing are consequences of the current situation. So the problems arise from other problems. And so, yeah, I think there are two different things, like what is the uniquely human thing? And like even the definition that Joseph liked from Cambridge, it used the word idea. So, these are sort of circular definitions which cannot be pinned down. So I think that when it comes to any performance, the machines will be able to perform almost anything. And now, does it mean they will think? They will perform like us in anything. Even in, you have music composed by machines, indistinguishable. Paintings. Okay, they say, well, there's nothing new in that painting because it combines some other styles. So if we don't distinguish, what can we say? So maybe it will be essentially different, but performance-wise, it will be indistinguishable.
That's not the same thing. I mean,
yes.
It's still mimicking.
Where does mimicking become the real thing?
Yes, I mean, so it's interesting because physicists say we need philosophers, or scientists say we need philosophers to pose the questions for us to ask. And you talk to someone like Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, and he for him, AI is going to have the creativity to actually pose questions that haven't occurred to us to ask. Whether they then answer them or we try to answer them, but actually coming up with the original question that hasn't occurred to us, that in itself is something that he believes AI would be capable of doing. Is that beyond what humans can do? What AI might be able to do?
It's difficult to imagine, and how one would even define the task, and unless you can define it, then it's very difficult for a machine to learn how to solve the tasks. So I'm a bit skeptical.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Hi, Annabelle Gower, I'm Director of the Center of Digital Economy here at Surrey. I had a question about the ethics of AI, and at least a couple of presentations had the almost obligatory last slide that said, and by the way, there are lots of ethical questions. And what I'd like to ask you guys, because some of you have been involved in this process of research on AI for decades, the way that research is done today, the way that AI is designed today, the process of that, does the ethical aspect get weaved in the design process, or is it always we build all the toys we want and then we throw it over the wall and say that's somebody else's problem? So that's the question I have for you tonight.
Thank you.
Well, the answer is very simple. Yes, the latter. Yeah.
I would add a little bit to that I think that the community has no way to controlling itself. Even if we wanted to stop certain lines of research, and you go to a conference and you see crazy things from China, for instance. I was at a conference and they say, well, 2 PhD students are laughing at you. Look, this is a video from underground station in some Chinese city, and we recognize every face of the person coming on the escalator. How come? The police gave us the 5 million images of all citizens of this city. You say, to 2 PhD students? They play with that? So we have GDPR, for instance, for this type of thing, but now we'll have a difficult thing. If this is only here, our research might be much slower than the research in the countries which are unregulated. So the regulation has to go all the way up to something like UN type of, like we have a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, we'll have AI ethics treaty, and whoever is in breach will be as seriously in trouble as some countries like North Korea. And without that, as individual scientists, it makes no sense not to do the Joseph answer. We do the toy, because if we don't do it, there are countries...
But I mean, you mentioned nuclear proliferation. That took decades for there to be a moratorium and agreement. But something like genetic engineering, gene editing, which is newer, how do you create a moratorium to stop that? The people who are developing things like CRISPR. But then in China, they're developing that. And
when something serious happens, things will start to change and move. Nothing serious happened so far. Okay. Let's hope that the first incident will not be the last incident. Some people who study superintelligence are worried about that.
Okay. We have another.
Can I
oh, yes, sorry, John. Yes,
Just an interesting example I came across just a few days ago on this topic. So, in terms of creating digital people, consent is really at the heart of allowing AI to generate an image of that person. So, generating content requires data that has approval. That's really important for media creation. But in this area of creating photoreal videos of people, there's a whole area called deepfakes. I don't know if many people have come across it, which is unsolicited swapping of faces without consent. That's terrible. But there's lots of research activities going on today in institutions looking to detect deepfakes. And there was a report recently where a researcher deliberately withheld their results. They'd come up with a fantastic way of detecting fake media that's been generated. But rather than release that into the domain, which allows people to then build on that knowledge to create even better fakes, they've held it back. And I think that's a terrible thing, because potentially great research that everyone can learn from and build on has been suppressed because they ethically felt that they shouldn't release it. So I think that there's a balance. And the flip side of the story is, again, what you're saying, should we not use data sets that don't have consent for everybody's face in it to build a fantastic solution, like something that helps with medical care? If the idea, the research that has come out is built on a data set from people who didn't give explicit consent to their data, should that research not have happened to begin with? I mean, it's a fantastic ethical question.
I think it would be, and I think it's going towards this direction, that research in AI is more multidisciplinary than before. So, for example, for a healthcare research project, if you are using AI, you definitely are collaborating with people, for example, in the UK for information governance, from people who are lawyers. And that would, of course, that would take a lot of time, but that would help us to, build kind of like a basics for the ethics at the same time that we are providing the solution. But yeah, it's a long, it's a very long.
Because they will have more experience of regulation and ethical.
Experience, knowledge, and expertise, yes.
Interesting. Yes.
Jim, I don't know, yes, it's on. Marvellous. It feels so powerful when you've got a microphone, don't you?
Don't abuse it.
As a retired health servant, I'm particularly struck by Shirin's point about sitting in front of a GP whose experience might be extensive, but it won't run into the hundreds and thousands or millions that we could provide with a database of the sort of size that you guys are used to dealing with. And then reflecting in that context on the recent conversation, how much work is going on looking at the decisions of ethics committees, looking at historical moral decisions. How many professors of ethics have been pulled into AI? Because surely AI is a mechanism for analyzing a lot of that moral judgmentation that goes on, some of which is extremely flawed human stuff. And if we got a bigger database, might we make better moral decisions? Is there any work that we could look at in the literature about the moral side of AI? And not as it applies to AI, but using AI to analyze a bit more our morality.
Shirin, do you have any?
This is not for us.
No.
This is for the ethics researchers, philosophers.
Yeah. I think, as I mentioned, it's more kind of becoming, like a collaboration between people from ethics and people like us from AI scenarios. But if I want to be honest, probably hasn't been enough before.
There are studies. I mean, the people in the US have done studies on using AI to help diagnoses of patients, particularly patients with mental health problems, or who might be thinking about taking their own lives. If the AI can be more accurate and more reliable in making a prediction, such that the doctor can then say this patient has to be sectioned or whatever for their own safety, then the ethical issues is something that we're not used to. A machine is making a decision on whether someone should be sectioned or not, even though it's much more reliable than a doctor can be. So I think it's something that it's not we have to learn to think differently in this new world.
That's definitely one of the reasons that at the moment, at least at this stage, machines cannot replace clinicians, let's say. They can help us to improve the decision making, they can support, for more personalized and more accurate and more data analysis, but they definitely cannot replace them and delete their role in the, very important decisions.
Some more questions. In the middle, and then we haven't had any from that side. No, they're shy.
Thank you, Walter Toddleby. There's work been done on this ethical issue in terms of the difference in ethical values across cultures. And I think that was illustrated by your point, Jiri, about the differences in research that you would see in China on what is acceptable and non-acceptable. And so the concept of, this is really more drawing on the earlier questions, the concept of moving towards some kind of global consensus, it seems very unlikely. The recent work from Harvard, MIT and so on, which compared the decisions that would be made for autonomous cars, in terms of, is it better to drive the car off the road and miss the pedestrian on the road when there's a person with a pram on the pavement, is different in one culture than another. This is work that's been published over the last year or two. So, I question the idea of whether we could get to a common global view. We already have very different views in terms of how societies should be run, between capitalist towards communist, or Chinese flavors of whatever. Some views on that, perhaps.
Does anyone have any? I'd like to ask first to move back to the technology rather than the ethics of the technology, hopefully in the last few minutes. But did anyone want to? No. They agree with you, I guess. Sorry, Joseph, did you?
No, it's sort of moving out of our...
Yes, I think that's right. I think it's sort of unfair to...
I would like to say one thing. I think to me it's a quality of life issue. So if a society feels that AI and the way it's used by the government or regulated will let's say, impact strongly the quality of life, they will have to push back. And that pushback will be to governments and then to international bodies, and it will have to start that way. I think there's no other force.
It's less of a question, but it's more a comment on the previous comment, because I was wriggling in my seat. But things like I think some of the ethical tests that have been done around self-driving vehicles are just pandering to popular science. You would never ask a driver of a car what decision they're going to make. Are you going to protect yourself or kill the pedestrian? And so I find it rather artificial that people, we had a Nukas day, some parents came round, and I was asked this question by one of the parents. And I said, well, that's a trolley problem. It's a very interesting conversation for 11 o'clock in the pub, after we've all had a few pints. But you wouldn't ask the human driver that.
No.
And any vehicle or AI system we develop, we're going to try and develop to be safe. And if an accident happens...
The worst an AI can do is react impulsively like a human. But anything else will be based on better decision-making, and therefore cutting down the danger. Yes, so we have if you pass that microphone 2 rows up. And then up there, right.
Dima Damen, University of Bristol. My question to Professor Kittler, what are the secrets of establishing a center that will last 30 years?
She's a pastor.
Handing the responsibility over to...
Yes.
Hi. So as a PhD student who is currently doing work in deep learning, I just wanted to know what you think about where deep learning is going. Is it going towards a cliff edge where we're going to all of a sudden reach the limits of deep learning, or do you think deep learning is something that's going to continue and grow and grow and grow?
Right.
I think as a PhD student, you can safely think it will grow. I mean, like the lifetime of a PhD. Right. Which should be now, what, 3.5 years in the UK?
Yeah,
and you are probably not in year 1, so we have 2.5 years to go, 2 years, so...
I've only got 6 months
You are
left,
safe.
sure.
You have 6 months to go, so within your very...
You are safe.
Does anyone else want to? Shirin?
I think it will grow in terms of being more explainable. So at the moment, deep learning is, well, we kind of call it like a black box. But in terms of the use and the reliability of how we get a result from it, I think it will grow in terms of being more explainable.
All right, now the hands are coming. So right, so we've got two in the middle if you keep your hands up, and then one up there, and then we'd probably be running out of time. Right, down and down again. Thank you.
Cheers. A question mainly for Joseph, but perhaps for all of you. Because we're reviewing 30 years of the centre here, it strikes me it's quite interesting that the rate of technological innovation seems to be getting faster and faster and faster. Joseph, I'm interested in your insights as to how now compares to the late 80s. Do you think things, I'm imagining an accelerating curve. Do you see it the same way?
Definitely. I think when we started with Microvax 2, I think the power of that machine was 1 million times smaller than today's server with a GPU count. So that first of all allows much faster progress than in our research project in Vision. We spent enormous amount of time just to develop special purpose hardware to detect edges. Now, things like this, it slowed down research enormously. Also, another big difference, you can just look at the statistics of people attending conferences. So initially the conferences had a few hundred people. Now CVPR conference, sort of main vision conference in the community, has 7,000-8,000 people, and it's probably going to grow. And there are many companies. So when I started, there were very few universities who had courses in machine intelligence and computer vision. It was quite difficult to find jobs in this area, and all that is so growing. Everybody is recognizing that actually this is a very fertile area which has enormous potential in every possible application. So I'm sure that there will be more and more activities, research activities. So I believe it's still on a non-linear growth path, much accelerating much faster than at a linear rate, and this will continue for a little while. There are so many problems that have not been solved. I think I just alluded to few in my sort of brief presentation, but and that's not talking about hyper problems like can machines ask questions or whatever, so I think we still have many tasks which can be well defined, but we don't know how to solve them at this stage. And I think that will actually, when I started, when Mike Kelly was head of school and we discussed sort of vision for the center, I told him, well, it will take 50 years before, it was 96, before we have something close to what humans can do. And so we are only, 25 years, whatever. Yeah, we still have another 25 years to go. If my prediction was correct.
I think sorry.
I would like to add one more thing. It's like, at the time Joseph was talking about, you submitted a paper to a conference, and it took, 3 weeks to be delivered at the conference site. Now, in one day, 50 people have read your paper, and because we have this code sharing tradition and data sharing, like in 48 hours, 5 people have tested your code. Like, 20 years ago, it took 3 weeks to get across the ocean to America, then 6 months to get the review back and things like that. So the speed of communication between people and sharing results is enormous. So the numbers are not just like useless, they are connected numbers, and things are getting at a ridiculous speed that like PhD students don't even know what to read.
Where to start?
Because by the time you finish the paper, it has been superseded by something.
Well, we have absolutely run out of time, so apologies to those who still had questions. We're going to have to end it there. So I'd now like to ask David Sampson, who is the University of Surrey's Vice Provost for Research and Innovation, to make some closing remarks. David.
Well, what an absolutely spectacular evening. I have to say I've got so many questions in my mind and I've found so many things very inspiring. And it's not ending here. Let me just, on all of your behalves, propose a vote of thanks to Adrian and his team, especially Liz James, who I know has done so much work to make sure that everything has run so well. And actually for treating us to such a fine discourse and demonstrations of AI and machine perception that you are hopefully still going to enjoy more of at the end of these concluding remarks, which will be thankfully short. I'm sure that you'll be happy to hear. It is actually very rare in the life of a university that a research centre lasts 30 years, especially so in a university that actually is only a little more than 50 years old itself. And so what is needed for that? Well, firstly, the topic of the centre must be enduring. And for that, it must be profound, fundamental and deep. Indeed, signal processing is a cornerstone discipline of electrical engineering, and it lies at the heart of what the centre does and what it has always done. Secondly, the centre needs to remain relevant over a long period, and here the centre has shown its adeptness in applying knowledge, its emphasis on vision and pattern recognition, first put to work so many years ago now on face recognition, a technology that now, of course, sits behind so many of the devices that we all use every day across the globe, including my own phone, every time I turn it on or open it up. But the centre has actually moved with time. It hasn't ossified. It's actually quite the contrary, retained its freshness, and it's now continuing its vision-based research combined extensively with AI. But indeed, CVSSP was always doing AI research long before the term came into popular parlance. So in essence, it's always been a part of its underlying remit and in its DNA. And it draws now on a raft of application areas that you've actually seen around you tonight and you've got a lovely taste of this evening. Breathtaking in its expanse and in its virtuosity. So what else do you need for such longevity? I think a visionary founder is absolutely key. And in Josef Kittler, we have a true gem. Josef is a man whose work has attracted more than 60,000 separate citations to all of his work, a true giant in the field of pattern recognition. And then there must be the capacity for succession, and that is something that is so rarely achieved. So congratulations to Josef in finding Adrian, who has been an incredibly worthy successor, himself recognised at the highest levels just this year through the IET Achievement Award. And then congratulations to Adrian for his success in steering the CVSSP into this next obviously successful phase. And then finally, I just have to make one remark on the culture at CVSSP. I personally have found here academics who understand what international excellence is and who live the other Surrey values of respect, ambition, collaboration and integrity, who value collegiality and who nurture an environment of trust and growth for young researchers. Such a culture is not to be taken for granted, and CVSSP is to be applauded and celebrated here this evening for having created it. All of us at Surrey are extremely proud of your achievements and of the way you have gone about achieving them. May you long continue to flourish. Let me wish you happy birthday, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much. Adrian.